Hi guys, I'm UnstableVoltage and I wanted to have a bit of a chat about SimCity. Now I did a video about this almost 2 weeks ago now, and that was shortly after the game first came out, and I went on for quite some time about the bugs and problems and issues that the game had. 2 weeks later on, and Maxis have put out several updates. I believe the current update at the time of this video is version 1.8. So I thought I'd go back through and actually have a look at some of the things that they have done or claim to have done, and look at what is still broken and what still needs a fix. Now, one of the most important things to note is the servers are a lot better. One of the original problems was many people couldn't even log into the game. As it requires an always-on internet connection, if you can't access the server, you just couldn't get on to play. Now, luckily, they've increased the server capacity, they've optimised the servers and the performance is better. And also, I think there's just a lot less people playing now because there are so many people like myself who hardly play it because I want these bugs and issues to be fixed. But for that reason, getting onto the server now doesn't really appear to be a problem. Most people can get on. There are still a few people with issues, but for the vast majority, that is all fixed now. As for a lot of the bugs and glitches and things that just generally don't work in the game, those are still there. The majority of patches that Maxis have put out in the last couple of weeks have fixed minor issues, even things down to how clear the text is and polishing up tutorials. The major thing that they claim to have fixed in their recent updates is the traffic and the actual pathfinding of the traffic, because at the moment it is just completely and utterly derpy. It drives around in a never-ending circle. Traffic will drive to the top of an intersection only to U-turn and come back the way they came. They will turn left at a junction and then left and then left and then left and just go around in a circle before finally getting where they need to go. This causes all kinds of problems because it causes unnecessary gridlock in the city. This then means that things like your fire trucks and ambulances and police cars just get stuck because even though they have sirens and emergency lights, they just don't actually go around the traffic, they sit in it, and this affects your public transport. It all has a knock-on effect because that affects tourism, it affects your trucks that are collecting and delivering goods from your trade depot. So even though they have made some efforts to alleviate the problems with traffic by making the pathfinding a little bit more intelligent, it's still broken. It doesn't work. Going back to the sort of multiplayer aspect, we've already learned that this game only transmits data backwards and forwards between the server at set intervals. And there are a lot of problems where people are playing a game with friends, with other people in other cities and trying to trade with them. A lot of that is still broken. Sometimes sharing services like fire and police and ambulance just doesn't work at all. Selling goods to your neighbours, even things like water and electricity, things like that, again, still very hit and miss whether it actually works. Sending money backwards and forwards between different cities, again, sometimes the money gets sent but never arrives at the other end and it just gets lost into the ether, so that's a problem they need to sort out. And because it's cloud saves and all of your cities are actually saved on the servers, there are still issues of people having their cities either completely disappear or deleted, and people having problems where their city gets rolled back to an earlier state that may have been hours, even days worth of gameplay just lost. So even though the servers are a lot more stable, there are a lot of problems with them still going on. Another thing that I mentioned in the original video was the way that the simulation actually works, and that is to say that when this game was originally being released, Maxis kind of promised that every sim within the city would have their own house and their own job, and everyone was simulated and everyone was followed. You could follow an individual sim around the city, which you kind of can. But what was discovered was the way that actually works is a bit of a bit of smoke and mirrors. What actually happens is when all your Sims go to work, they all pour out of their houses, get into their cars. The first empty job they come to, they go to that job, and then the next Sim will come along, go past them till it gets to the next empty job, and so on. And it's the same when they come home. They will come out of work, go back to the residential area. The first empty house they come to, they go into that house. That becomes their house. So every day their house changes and their job changes. Now, a lot of people complained about that because it isn't really a true simulation. That sort of thing just doesn't happen. That's not how it should be. Now, I did say I understood why they did that, because it'd be very difficult to program and a lot of resource control to actually monitor each individual Sim and where they lived. And, you know, Maxis have admitted quite openly and freely the way in which this system works. A lot of people were hoping that that was going to be fixed. Personally, I don't think it ever will. I think it is just a method they have used to program the simulation, and I think to change that would be to literally rewrite and reprogram a major aspect of the game. So I can't see that happening anytime soon, if at all. There are still a few bugs which I do consider quite game-breaking. First of all, utilities such as power and water and sewage still have a problem where you can have a power plant with an overabundance of power, but you've still got blackouts and brownouts in your city because the power just doesn't reach some of the properties. And the only way you can often solve this is by adding another power plant at the opposite end of the city, because the method at which power and water and the sewage radiates under the roads just doesn't seem to work well. It causes a lot of problems. And because the cities are so small, you don't have the room to put 2 or 3 power plants down to sustain your city. And again, the same goes for water. You can have an overabundance of water and it doesn't get from one end of the city to another. That's compounded by the problem that when it rains, the water tables aren't always topping up. So you'll put your water facility down somewhere over a lot of groundwater, and that groundwater then runs out and you have to relocate your water facilities somewhere else. The rainfall is actually supposed to top it back up, and that hasn't been happening 100% of the time either. So there's another issue. And again, one of the issues that broke my first city, and is still an ongoing issue, is the trade port not working. I rely on that trade port for a lot of the money coming into the city, selling coal. But after a while, it was working absolutely perfectly, and then it just stopped. And I've seen this happen on multiple cities, not just my own, but friends who play as well. They've had the same problem where your trade depot is working absolutely fine. You're selling coal or plastics or whatever you're exporting 3, 4, 5, 6 times a month, and then all of a sudden, it just stops. You buy more trucks, you can demolish the depot and build another depot, you can switch between exporting and importing and using locally. It doesn't matter. Once it stops, finito, finished, gone, that's it. And if you're relying on that for your money, then your city's in trouble. And again, another issue which a lot more people have been noticing now is the RCI structure, the residential commercial industry, where you can essentially run a city without any commerce or industry. You can literally just zone the entire city for residential. You don't even have to have power and water and anything. And the city still grows. And this has led to a lot of people calling SimCity a screensaver more than a simulator. The fact that you can just set the whole city to residential, leave it to do its thing, and it still manages to grow with little or no input from yourself. So, to summarise from what I went through in the last video, they have been trying to fix some of the issues. The majority of what they've managed to sort out are server problems, so people can actually get onto the game now. And, you know, despite the game having these bugs and problems, people are still enjoying playing it. Even I do. I mean, I do like the game, and the time that I have spent playing it, I have enjoyed. And there are a lot of people out there who, now they can log into the game, are having a good time, and they're enjoying playing the game, even because of the bugs and glitches. They're not too bothered by those. But yeah, a lot of the actual patch work that's been done by Maxis has been very little minor things at the moment. A lot of the bigger, more game-breaking stuff hasn't been addressed yet. I do understand that these things do take longer to code. They have to find what's causing the bug. They have to reprogram the patch to fix the bug, and then obviously that has to have in-house testing before they can put that live. So that is understandable. So the game in its current state, playable, still has issues. If you're the sort of person that only likes to play a game if it's running absolutely perfectly, you might still want to steer clear of it. If you're a big SimCity fan and you're happy to play the game and you don't mind the fact that the sort of multiplayer element of it isn't working properly, and that you may well end up putting hours into a city only to have it either stop working in some way or for it to end up being deleted or rolled back, if you can live with that and you're happy to take that risk, then, you know, go for it. You'll probably still enjoy playing the game. So at least some of the problems have been fixed. I will probably do another video or report later on when they eventually get all the issues sorted and take a more in-depth look at the game and see how it's working then. But until now, if you are one of those people that are able to play, then enjoy playing, and I will see you next time.